It may come as a surprise to learn this, but the use of drugs has become an accepted component of our culture. And by drugs, I don't only mean substances that are sanctioned by the government, like tobacco and alcohol. I'm referring to activities like playing video games that provide us with dopamine in a timely manner and at a low cost. There has been a recent uptick in the practice of men participating in activities such as watching sports and content that is sexually explicit while spending an increasing amount of time in the virtual world rather than the real one. If you have ever devoted a significant amount of time to watching an anime series or playing a video game, you have probably had the idea at some point that the world depicted in the media was so interesting that your actual life seemed uninteresting in comparison. As a direct consequence of this, the weaker men don't put up much of a struggle for their rights, and instead cave into whatever trend is prevalent at the time. It is abundantly evident that showing tolerance toward others and obeying what so-called experts tell us to do has proven detrimental to men. They won't even be aware that they're being brainwashed if males are preoccupied with things like wobbling bums, titties, and video games. If they're too busy with those things, they are participating in the Roman circus while the empire is crumbling around them. This is something that has been going on in Western culture for some time now, and the concept of masculinity has never been looked down upon to the same degree as it is today. The feminist movement has opened people's eyes to the extent to which our culture is geared toward the hatred of men. There are certain mentally unstable men in the world who harass and threaten women. Even while I despise these repulsive males just as much as the next normal and decent person, I can't say that they are representative of the population as a whole. It is necessary for society to understand that not all males are criminals, just as it is necessary to understand that not all women are dishonest. Because of all the absurd propaganda that is spread about males, today's women dislike men for no apparent reason, which leads to men being terrified to date or not dating at all. Men who are submissive pose a larger threat to society than other sorts of men because they are less difficult to govern and simply comply with the dictates of the authorities. Weak men are incapable of standing up for their own rights, and as a result, they simply adapt to whatever is happening around them. I don't even mean for men to brag about the amount of different women they've had sexual encounters with in order to boost their egos. What I mean is something that is a lot easier to understand and more useful, and that is having an opinion, facing what is wrong and accepting responsibility for oneself. As I've stated previously, folks of our generation have an unhealthy dependence on their mobile devices because they spend so much time on them. This is because they are being addicted to it. Both men and the internet are capitalizing on the time that males waste by wasting their time online, and both parties are doing so by taking advantage of the situation. On top of that, men who have been spiritually castrated are more likely to argue with one another over a sporting event rather than speak up about significant matters such as the education of children. This is because men who have been spiritually castrated are unable to see the value in their own voices. Consider the following. These men are the kind who yell at the referee, criticize the head coach, and consider themselves morally superior to the athletes who are attempting to achieve perfection. Those of us who are young adults or even a little bit older have the good fortune of being able to avoid having our minds manipulated by the system. These days, the onslaught against men is so absurd that parents are starting to see the destructive things their children are being taught in school. This is causing parents to become more aware of the dangers facing their children. This decline affects everything from the investigation of traditional gender norms to the teaching of masturbation to young children. No one is giving the guys any instruction on how to successfully lead a group. Because the curriculum in schools has been watered down to such an extent, pupils are not learning anything that is of any use to them. They instead expose themselves to be people who are easily influenced and who are eager to contribute to a system in order to achieve their goals. Despite this, women are increasingly obtaining access to more advantages and even higher social status than men. The person who has been brainwashed is excessively obsessed with his own enjoyment of entertainment. When it comes to real-world topics such as stoicism, this kind of man is absolutely clueless, despite the fact that he knows a lot about his favorite sports team. Women are taught that all men are terrible and that they should be controlled in order to prevent their toxic masculinity from coming out, while men are encouraged to be emotional, and men are taught that women should believe that they should believe that they should believe this. This is done in order to prevent toxic masculinity from coming out. A complete upheaval of the established order of the world has been carried out with the intention of discouraging males from entertaining ideas of insurrection in response to increasing levels of repression and restriction on their freedom. You might need to take a glance at the surrounding area to comprehend what I mean, but I believe you already understand what I'm trying to convey. In his publications, Robert Kiyosaki regularly makes reference to false professors. These are the kinds of people who, by virtue of the positions they occupy and the duties they shoulder, should be able to command a significant amount of respect from those around them. The provision of educational opportunities for children is a principle that is held in extremely high esteem and is not challenged by anyone at all. In spite of this, an increasing number of individuals are beginning to see through this fraud as a direct result of the enormous corruption that has permeated all levels of the educational system. What difference does it make if a child's parents are working long hours if they aren't paying attention to the lessons that are being taught to their child at school? In times past, it was typical for mothers to take the lead role in bringing up their children and serving as their primary educators. Only women were anticipated to fulfill this duty, and it was expected of them alone. This meant that wives and mothers were the ones who were responsible for teaching their children the appropriate social manners and morals that were desired by their husbands and fathers. This was the case because husbands and fathers wanted their children to behave appropriately in social situations. What is occurring right now is exactly the opposite of what was anticipated to take place. It is now much simpler for women to enter the workforce, which has contributed to a rising degree of economic autonomy on the side of women. This development in feminism has resulted in the simplification of the process of entering the workforce for women. Even if they are in committed relationships, an increasing number of women are entering the workforce in order to build successful careers outside the home, and they are devoting a significant amount of their time and energy to doing so. This trend can be seen even though the number of women working outside the home has increased in recent years. Because of the male's naturally competitive character, he behaves in the same way as the female does, if not more so. Because of this, the duty for the children's education is handed over to the teachers at the school, many of whom do not have a very real motivation to educate their students. The guys of the future are currently hooked on activities like TikToking, swabbing women's assets, seeing filthy content, and watching sports. These are all pastimes that they find enjoyable. These guys are squandering their time and energy on activities that are not productive and are preventing them from channeling their sexual energy into creative force. Men are becoming increasingly apathetic in spite of the fact that there is a well-defined agenda to denigrate masculinity. Many men all over the world are finally coming to terms with the environment in which they live and are taking measures to protect themselves from potential threats as a result of this realization. MGTOW is helping to foster the construction of a community in which the actions of the men are guided by common sense and the attainment of their goals, by bringing men together and contributing to the nurturing of its formation. Despite the fact that feminism is becoming more hostile and irrational, MGTOW is still helping men achieve their masculine potential. If you haven't joined yet but are interested in doing so, you might want to give it a try despite the fact that feminism is becoming more hostile. MGTOW is still helping men achieve their masculine potential. To what extent do you believe that the anti-masculinity movement is causing harm to men, and what steps are you taking to address this issue? If you have any thoughts or stories to share, please leave them in the comments section. Thank you for watching, and if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe to our channel. By clicking the notification bell, you won't miss any future videos. See you in the next video.